Good morning and welcome to the 361st Harvard Commencement. I'm sitting here with Dan Schrag, my colleague from Earth and Planetary Sciences. We will be your hosts this morning, sitting high above the Tercentenary Theatre, renamed for this one day. Usually we call it the Yard, but now it is Tercentenary Theatre, renamed after the 300th anniversary of Harvard in 1936. It is a beautiful day. We've got the best seats in the house. And for those of you who are watching and with us on television or on your computers this morning, you have pretty good seats as well. So get a cup of coffee and pull up a chair and join us for these festival rites of what is really a great academic festival. What do you think, Dan, looking out over this spread today? It really is extraordinary.
Well, not only is the weather spectacular, all that rain we had over the last few weeks has made everything so green and so luscious, but in addition, just the pageantry that you see out there, all of the wonderful colors, dominated by crimson, which comes out looking a little pinkish, but really an amazing array of colors and just wonderful, happy faces.
We're about to see the President's Division, which is just passing the toe of John Harvard. We were seeing that polished toe in just an earlier frame. But the processions that come into the Tercentenary Theatre this morning are in 4 divisions, and the most important is the President's Division. There you see her, Drew Faust, followed by some of the previous presidents.
You can see that she's accompanied today by 3 previous presidents, Neil Rudenstein, Derek Bach, and Larry Summers. And so you see all of them. I also just saw a glimpse of our new provost, Alan Garber, who's just returned to Harvard. He spent much of his career at Stanford, but he got his MD and PhD here in PhD in economics and his medical degree.
And now we're also seeing, but just behind them, you notice the women and men who are members of the Harvard Corporation. That was Nan Cohane, who had on a lovely black hat with the rose in it. But the members of the corporation are followed then by the Reverend and Honorable Board of Overseers that no longer consists largely of reverends, but the overseers are 30 elected members of Harvard alumni who come as part of the governing boards of Harvard University. And as we're speaking this morning, we're going to have a few interviews with people in some of the other divisions. I mentioned there are 4 divisions, and the President's Division is one. There also is a graduate division of the graduating classes, perhaps the most important being the 25th and the 50th, who join us here. And then we have the procession of the undergraduates and the graduate division, which has already pretty much filled up a great deal of the Tercentenary Theatre, from the business school, the law school, and the other graduate schools.
Now this year, the 50th reunion class, the class of 1962, is particularly special to me because my mother was in the class of 1962. She was the last, her class was the last to get a Radcliffe degree as opposed to a Harvard Radcliffe degree. But they all are celebrating together as one reunion class, and we're joined by our good friend and colleague Richard Zeckhauser, who's also in the class of 1962. Richard, welcome.
Thank you very much. It's a wonderful occasion, and as usual, I suspect you said this already, it never rains on Harvard graduation, which is one of the big, I sort of say, slight falsifications that Harvard employs.
Actually, it has rained, as you recall, maybe a couple of times.
It has, but
it's just a mild exaggeration. As a climate scientist, I can say that it's not such a big deal.
Yes, you're good. Your field is good at that, Dan.
That's right. We average things out, and it's okay. On average, it never rains.
Richard, you're here as a member of the 50th reunion class. You also have a special role at the Kennedy School of Government as a professor. But think of yourself for the moment as a 50th reunion class person. What is different as you look out over this huge gathering today?
Well, I see the undergraduates, and as I remember when I was here, there were 4 of us for one of you. I'm talking about men and women.
Yeah.
And now there's 1 of us for one of you. And I think that that's the major change. But the other changes are equally amazing. We had virtually no African Americans in my class. very few Asian Americans who
Yes.
now make up 18% of the class. Not very many foreigners. And that's dramatically different. And if you know these undergraduates, they're much more involved than we were.
Really?
Every undergraduate, well, you're a master of a house, so you know this. Every undergraduate who comes to see me says, I can squeeze you in amongst my 3 other activities today.
They are amazingly busy. They are amazingly.
I mean, we played intramural sports. That was our big thing. And occasionally, if you were talented, you were in theater. But every undergraduate I know is in a political action group, is in a dance group, is in a theater group, does something special. So they're a much more interesting group.
Here you see the President's Division is coming up, almost ready. Yes, they're mounting the stage that's right in front of us here. So these are the universities are, as you know, Richard, fairly hierarchical. And at least on commencement day, we begin to see some of the hierarchies enacting themselves. The president, members of the corporation.
There's Jackie O'Neill, the
Yeah.
marshal. So Richard, among all your other distinctions, you have also the great honor of actually being the PhD advisor of our new provost, Alan Garber. You want to tell us anything about what Alan was like when he was a student here?
Well, in many ways, he's exactly the same way he was then. He was always irrepressible. It was remarkable. I didn't realize this until I looked it up. But Alan was getting his medical school degree and his PhD here at the same time, which isn't so hard, except his medical school was Stanford. And he managed to get the 2 degrees, which would normally take you 9 years, in 7. And I think that's because he figured out a way to have transcontinental flight save time. It was a remarkable accomplishment, but he never seemed the least bit in a hurry. He just was always producing something new every couple of days. And the other thing that he had, which prepares him enormously well for this job, is he had insatiable curiosity. And as the 2 of you know, coming from slightly different fields, as provost, you have to understand what everybody in this university does.
That's a great recommendation.
Well, it's something that I've already noticed about him, that he seems to be curious and interested in just about everything. And that's just a wonderful sign for the future.
Can you say just one word about what the highlights of this 50th reunion have been for you so far?
Well, it's remarkable to see people who you haven't seen. I've seen many people 25 years ago, but everybody's life has sort of reached this point where they're deciding what's important in life. That's what we were supposed to write about in our report. I would say there was much more attention to spirituality and religion, things that you know about, than there was in my 25th reunion report, where it was, I'm a senior partner in so-and-so and so-and-so, and you can contact me at this number if you have some business deal to do in Cleveland.
The Harvard Crimson actually reported that more than half of you believed in something that might go under the name of God. And the other remarkable thing I saw in their statistics was how many members of the class that you represent were married over 25 years to the same person. Something like 60% of you.
That is surprising. I actually noticed something that I think the class more or less bifurcated. There's one of my classmates who said in his report that I must have been the oldest father. He has a child who's 5 from his second wife.
Yeah.
And you could see a difference in attitude. I had a very close friend who has 2 families, not unusual for men. And, his question was, how do I get my daughters into Harvard?
This is a perennial question.
But it's not a perennial question for someone 70 years old.
No, not usually. One of the great things was that we also saw that in your class there were something like 4,000 applicants, 1,000 admittees. This year there were 30,000 applicants for Harvard, and these students who come really are extraordinary. In your class they were extraordinary too. I mean, look at the list of people who are reuniting with you. Really extraordinary.
Here come some of the faculty to the podium. It's wonderful to see them rise up on the stage now.
Richard, I know you have to get back to your procession, but thank you so much for coming
Well,
to
thanks
us.
to the two of you for all you do for the university, and particularly for making graduation a little bit more festive.
Well,
Thank
Richard,
you.
thanks.
Thank
Enjoy
you.
the rest of the
Yeah.
reunion.
It is a great academic festival, and we've been watching the faculty come up, well, through the open ranks of the seniors to begin with, and then come up on the platform.
You know,
They
Diana, for
eventually will
me,
seat here.
and I know you haven't
Yeah.
walked because you've been doing this for so long,
Yeah.
but when you actually do process,
Here we
there's
have
Derek Bach.
Derek Bach, president from 1971 to 91. Derek was
And again, just a few years ago.
That's right, the only one to have served twice. He also was the Phi Beta Kappa orator this year at the Phi Beta Kappa literary exercises on Tuesday. He gave a very moving speech on the importance of democracy. And as you know, he writes a lot about education.
Yes.
And his point was really the foundation of a vibrant democracy has to be education. And
That's
that
right.
means a huge, more than we do, commitment to funding for education.
What I was going to say was that as a faculty member, the procession is really one of the most exhilarating times at Harvard because you
Yes.
are walking through the crowds of seniors, many of whom took your courses. And so you actually are seeing
You're
faces
seeing
you
them.
recognize and applauding them, and they're applauding you, and it's a wonderful experience.
We have one of those seniors with us today, and her name is Oladipo. Olamide Oladipo. So I'm practicing these names. We call her Lami.
Yes.
And tell us a little bit about you and your stole that you have
Hi.
on, and
Will
what
do.
you majored in, and what this day is like for you.
Definitely. As Diana said, my name is Lami. I'm a rising senior. I'm a senior. I'm graduating today. I concentrated in economics and anthropology, and my family's from outside of Boston, from Canton, and hailed from Nigeria a long time ago. So they're super proud, and I'm very, very excited to be here. Somewhat surreal, but I'm definitely very, very, very grateful.
Well, it's a wonderful day, and how many of your family are here? There's a huge crowd. I don't
Yes.
know how much room there is for all
No,
of them.
most definitely.
Yeah.
I have all my immediate family, all my sisters. I'm the oldest of 5 girls, so they're all here, and my parents are here, as well as a few family friends. So try to keep the group somewhat compact today.
So that all of your sisters are here.
Yes,
Oh, that's so
yes.
wonderful.
Thank
It's what a
you.
spectacular day.
I know, it's beautiful weather. I'm very, very glad.
Now,
for
have you
that
been to
too.
commencement before?
I haven't.
So have you seen the kind of colors and pageantry out there? Isn't that spectacular?
Beautiful. It's beautiful. I'm very glad to be wearing this stole. I received this yesterday from the Black Students Association when we had our Black graduation in Memorial Church last night. So I'm really proud to be sporting this.
Wonderful. That's wonderful.
Great for you.
Say a little bit about your sisters, because I know you have 4 other sisters.
Yes.
And would you say all of their names and tell us what you do together?
I can. So as I've actually mentioned, my name's Olamide, and the next sister is Olaitan. She's 19. She's at Brown. Then there's Oladuni. She's 13. Olayeni. She's 11. And Juby. She's 6. And we're a singing group. One of the greatest things about going to Harvard was being close to home, and so we sing together as the Oladipo sisters. So we just released our newest single called "The Song for America." It's a tribute to the United States, and it's been wonderfully received. So we're very glad to be able to do this together.
And you sing, and you're also a songwriter with that.
I am. So it's been good to be able to combine both the academic and sort of my more personal interests while being here at Harvard.
And what are you going to do this summer, Lana?
This summer I'm going to start full-time in New York working in finance.
Oh, good for you. You'll enjoy that.
Thank you.
And so you're really starting
Very soon.
starting not just for the summer, but for the next few years in
Yes,
finance.
Definitely. But I'm excited. I'm very excited.
So look back over Harvard. What has been the most exciting thing for you, the most wonderful? You've done so many activities. But
For sure. I think the most meaningful experience I've had is being an intern at the Harvard Foundation for Race and Intercultural Relations under Dr. S. Allen Counter. I've been doing that since freshman year, and we've done so much on this campus regarding diversity and race relations, and I'm really, really glad to see sort of the impact that we've been able to have over such a short time. And I hope to stay involved with it even as an alum. So.
Lami, thank you for being with us
Thank you
today.
for
And
having
Lami,
This is really exciting.
congratulations.
Thank
I hope you
you.
really enjoy the day.
Thank you so
And
much.
congratulations to your parents and your sisters.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
So you can head back to the Lowell House crowd, and I'm sure that they're going to be processing before too long.
Yes, you'd better hurry.
Okay.
So, you know, Diana, I wanted to give one call out to someone who's not marching today, but who really is very much in our thoughts and in our minds. He may actually make it to graduation over at Mather House later in the day because his son is graduating, and that's Alan Brandt. As you know, Alan's a distinguished professor of the history of science, history of medicine. His recent book on the tobacco wars was really a pioneering achievement, and really for the last 5 years he's been the dean of our Graduate School of Arts and Sciences, and really led and charted a course through very complicated issues in a very wise, masterful way. And unfortunately, Alan has suffered a very serious illness and has been in the hospital for the last many weeks, and is now at home and hoping with his doctors, accompanied by his doctors, to go to see his son at Mather House this afternoon. He's not here today, but he's such an important part of Harvard that I thought we should just call him out and really wish him our best.
Best to Alan. And he is being temporarily substituted for by Professor Richard Tarrant in the classics, who is the acting dean of the Graduate School of Arts and Sciences. And, you know, that graduate school, those are the folks who get their PhDs today. They're the ones in the bright crimson robes. And although the degrees are usually awarded in the reverse order of the age of the various schools, it really is the PhDs and the Graduate School of Arts and Sciences that have a kind of pride and place, and their PhDs will be awarded first. And then we move on to the School of Engineering and Applied Sciences and Continuing Education, and then end again in Arts and Sciences with the undergraduates.
We see Neil Rudenstein there next to Derek Bach. It's really wonderful to see everyone all in their robes, all celebratory.
Neil was president of Harvard from 1991 till 2001, and through a very, very important period of growth and energy in.
Look at all of those happy undergraduates out there. And by the way, the other thing we see out there is a lot of happy faces of parents. You know, for parents, this is just a wonderful day, celebrating not only their investment in their children, but the wonderful achievements that their children have made while they're here, and they're, you know, on the edge of this exciting time where their children are going out into the world, and you can just see the enthusiasm and excitement and pride all over this great theater of all of the parents here.
We've just had a view also of Larry Summers, the third of the presidents who is with us today. We'll be seeing them throughout the ceremonies because they're seated, I think, really very near to President Faust.
That's right.
And we still see faculty now coming through the ranks, open ranks of the seniors. This is a kind of initiatory event in which those seniors form the aisle for the faculty to process through. And you know, it's well known in the faculty that you actually have to be vested with a Harvard degree before you can assume your duties here. So any faculty member who did not have a Harvard degree when they become a professor is awarded
That's
one.
right. That actually happened to me. You know,
That
in
did.
my family, I was the only one without a Harvard degree. In fact, everybody in my family has 2 Harvard degrees. And my sister, my brother, my mother, my father, and I had none. And so when I was promoted to professor, by Neil Rudenstein, I was given a honorary master's.
You had to be given a Harvard degree
That's
because
right.
literally, tribally speaking, you can't be an initiator without being part of the tribe. And
I'm not
that
sure,
happens
but I
actually
think it actually is copying an old Oxford and Cambridge tradition.
Yeah.
Where at Oxford and Cambridge, you can teach if you have one of Oxford will recognize a Cambridge degree and vice versa, but no one else's. Harvard, we only recognize Harvard degrees.
Well, we do recognize the others in one way or another. But among the things that we will see, we didn't comment on this, but if you were watching very closely a few moments ago, you would actually have seen some of the recipients of the honorary degrees, of whom there are 9 today. And here again, that moment that you so love and that I also have loved the procession of faculty through the open ranks of the seniors.
And there they are, and you can see going through the last bit of the rows, those are the PhD students there on the right. You can see them in their bright colored robes with the 3 bars on their arms that represent the PhD.
One of the questions people often ask is, who's speaking at Harvard Commencement? The truth is there are a lot of people speaking at Harvard Commencement, but the only people you will hear this morning are the 3 student orators, 2 who are undergraduates, one delivering a Latin oration, the other an oration in English, and the third one of the students from one of the graduate schools, and this time from the Graduate School of Arts and Sciences. There's the Mather House crowd waving at us. The new masters of Mather House, Christy McDonald and Michael Rosengarten, can be seen somewhere there. They will be leading the house into their seats here in the yard.
You know, commencement is a great time for seeing just how incredibly diverse this Harvard community really is.
Yes.
Across all of the different schools. People forget just how, we have 12 schools with continuing education.
Yes.
And they come from so many different perspectives and have so much enthusiasm about their work and their achievements. And it's wonderful to see that all celebrated on one day.
Well, and the other thing is really quite amazing. When you say Harvard University, this is probably the only day in which you actually see a manifestation of what the university is. I mean, people from all of the schools of Harvard, from the graduate schools and the undergraduates. And then who else is part of Harvard University? Well, of course, the alumni. And there are these sort of returning clans of alumni, 10th, 25th, 50th reunion classes. And then all of the people who are the parents and supporters of the students who are here. So it really is an ingathering on a day like today where you see something of what Harvard actually means.
That's right. You know, today we're also is the final commencement for one of our deans, Dean Bill Graham, who was really a colleague of yours in religion,
yes.
but moved over to take over as dean of the Divinity School about 10 years ago.
Yes.
And is now stepping down and returning to arts and
teaching,
sciences,
which is a good thing. We taught together in our early years, and that was really wonderful.
He's really provided wonderful leadership for the Divinity
Yes.
School and really tried to connect the Divinity School to the rest of the campus. And I think his successor will carry on that wonderful
Yes.
tradition.
One of the things that we are observing today is the close, really, of the 375th year of Harvard. The 375th festivities began here in this Tercentenary Theatre on October 23rd with what was also deemed a great Harvard-wide party, and it was. Only it totally poured down rain.
I was going to say, we can't claim that the weather was so great on that day.
It was not a great
That was
day.
one of the most
just
intense weather events I've ever seen at Harvard.
And I came through the Harvard yard the next morning, through the Tercentenary Theatre that had been filled with people, soaking wet people, dancing, playing music, etc. But it was literally a yard of mud everywhere. And in fact, one would see people's shoes stuck in the mud of Harvard Yard. It was an extraordinary aftermath. But this is a theater in which a lot of the great events of the university take place. For undergraduates, it's a yard fest. There also was the tremendous sort of arts first exposition that took place here, including an installation of the artist David Michalek on the face of Widener Library at Arts First, which was called Slow Dancing. And for a university that is on the move pretty fast all the time, it was a very meditative scene of dancers filmed fast and played very slow. And so it is a theater. It is a Tercentenary Theatre that includes great events like this commencement, but also other kinds of arts events.
So look at all of the graduates celebrating together. In a few minutes, they'll be officially awarded their degree.
One of the things that we should note, I think those might be Kennedy School graduates with the globe in their hands. But the degrees here are awarded by what is called a speech act. In a sense, they receive their degrees by the speech of the president, and as she says, by the power invested in me, and then she confers upon them the various degrees for which they've qualified.
That's right. So one at a time, each of the deans will get up and ask the president to confer a particular degree on the students in his or her school.
And there was a time when there were no diplomas at all. Now people actually return to their various schools or to the houses in the case of the undergraduates and receive their diplomas in a separate ceremony, which will take place either after or before lunch. But
and you, as master of Lowell House, get to preside over one of those ceremonies.
Preside over one of those.
Those are
I give
really
a little
wonderful times, aren't they?
short speech. But then also, I and my co-master Dorothy Austin and our resident dean are the ones who pass out the actual diplomas to students, and it's a more intimate setting, to be sure. The PhDs whom we're seeing here receive their diplomas in not quite so intimate a setting. They all go to Sanders Theatre, where they're seated by department. But this is what I think can only be described as a great academic festival, with all the music, the bagpipes, the Dixieland bands, the
Absolutely.
Harvard
And as you said earlier,
choirs.
people feel they're really connected to this incredibly diverse and really quite amazing institution. Yes.
So we'll have, and I correct myself, 8 honorary degrees today, and one of those is already well known. That will be Fareed Zakaria, who will be delivering the afternoon lecture, the commencement speech in the Tercentenary Theatre at the gathering that will also include a speech by President Drew Faust and by the Harvard Alumni Association as well.
And then today, during the ceremony this morning, President Faust will announce each of the individual 8 honorary degree recipients and tell us a little bit about their achievements. There are always some really spectacular people singled out for this honor. Really breathtaking achievements over their career.
The list of honorary degree recipients is something that literally stretches through the annals of American history and arts and letters. And we'll see some of that today as well. Both Dan and I were present last night at the honorary degrees dinner, which is hosted by the president in Annenberg Hall, which is usually the dining quarters of the freshman class. Very elegantly arrayed and a wonderful event.
You know, it's wonderful watching the students file through now. We're seeing the undergraduates coming in. I see periodically a student from my course, from one of my classes over the last few years, and it's just wonderful to see them having gotten this far, finished all of their work and ready for a bright future.
They gathered yesterday here for what is called the class day. That is, there's a class day in every one of the schools.
Up there you see in the sea of undergraduates a couple of parents
Yes,
struggling in for one last hug,
for a
one last
photograph.
kiss.
Yeah, that's
Yes.
great. But the class day speaker here included Barney Frank, Representative Barney Frank, who is leaving his district this year, and a race is hot underway for his seat. He was very funny, as he often is, but he also made a very serious proposition that Europe should graduate from its economic dependence on the United States in military terms. It was time. He cited George Marshall's commencement speech 65 years ago that announced the Marshall Plan, and said it was about time for that well, as he put it, for Europe to graduate as well. I'm not sure how many people took offense at this. The Christine Lagarde of the International Monetary Fund was the class day speaker at the Kennedy School, and Eric Holton, our Attorney General at the law school.
Holden, yeah. Yeah, each of those class day events have very different flavors across the different schools, and the graduates themselves are the ones who who select those speakers and participate in that planning. So we're getting very close now. The last of the procession is filing in, and the faculty are all seated, and it looks like we're almost ready to begin.
The undergraduates will all receive their degrees together at the end, but there will be a group of them who are asked to come forward and will receive a handshake from the president and from Dean Evelyn Hammonds of the college. And those are those who are elected as
There is
class
your
marshals.
Lowell House coming through. I see it right now.
There they are. There's Dorothy Austin, Brett Flanger, and then some of the rest of the students of the house.
Now, Diana, tell us a little bit about what it's like to be a house co-master and the sort of ways that you interact with undergraduates in that context.
Well, I think it's the best job at Harvard. I often say that because one really gets to know undergraduates across a whole range of fields, not only the ones that I teach in my class, but ones who are in completely different subjects and don't take my classes. And it's also true for our tutors. You see some of them there carrying Lowell House flags. These tutors come from across the disciplines as well, and it is a really special experience for them.
They really do heroic work, don't they? I mean, the faculty
very
often don't
important.
appreciate just how important those tutors are in the lives of our undergraduates. Being there for them when they have academic difficulties or social difficulties,
Yeah.
they can really make a huge difference in their undergraduate career.
And the other, of course, are the faculty who are affiliated with the house. I mean, I think it is what Peter Gomes used to call Harvard on the half shell. He was a member of our senior common room, but it was there that he really met people from the medical school and the School of Public Health and the law school and from across the departments of Harvard. So for me, the best thing about being a housemaster is essentially convening and participating in an intergenerational community of undergraduates and graduate students and faculty and indeed staff who are part of the community as well.
You know, I teach a course that has a lot of freshmen in it, and when you see these freshmen, they're 18 or 19 years old, they're so wide-eyed at this big university, and watching them actually really grow up over those 4 years.
They do.
And their maturity and their sense of the world and their knowledge is really spectacular. It's a very exciting thing to watch people develop through that stage. But as a housemaster, you must see it even in more color.
We see them when they come as sophomores and talk about Harvard tribalization. One of the things that students love is called Housing Day, in just before spring break, when they find out which house they got into, and suddenly they are all enthusiastic tribal members of that
Yes.
house.
We're looking there at the screen. You see Evelyn Hammond in the center. She's the dean of Harvard College, and also another distinguished professor of history of
Science. This is a moment at which they're all chatting on the stage.
And we see on the right
Evelyn.
two deans, David Elwood and Julio Frank.
There they are.
David Elwood from the Kennedy School and Julio Frank from the Harvard School of Public Health. And you see all the other distinguished members of the corporation, various other deans and associate deans.
Clayton
milling
Spencer
about.
is there almost in mid-screen with a blue trim on her hood. She is leaving the president's office as having been one of the very important assistants to President Faust. There she is.
There she is.
And
She's
she
been
will
a wonderful
become the president
advisor.
of Bates College in the next few weeks. She will be leaving on Friday.
It's wonderful for her. What a great opportunity.
Great opportunity, and she has probably more experience as an incoming college president than most do, because she has worked next to presidents from Neil Rudenstein to Larry Summers and now and Derek Bach and Drew Faust.
Here comes Mather House up to their seats, and they're just a handful more. And I guess then the reunion classes come in.
It's fairly complicated business about how houses are seated here. And you see the number of people in top hats who are also called marshals. And those marshals' aides do an enormously important job in sort of directing the traffic of what is really a very complex seating pattern here in the Tercentenary Theatre with graduate schools and the houses.
That's, of course, the other unsung heroes of this whole commencement is the people in the marshal's office who plan this ceremony for weeks and weeks and weeks, really for months. They start this months and months ahead, and it's just amazingly complicated to put this all on, and they make it seem absolutely simple and seamless.
And there is Fred Abernathy with his baton talking to Jackie O'Neill. He is the caller who actually gets the faculty and the president's processions and everybody in order. Stands in a box over between Massachusetts Hall and Harvard Hall.
Now, of course, the actual event cannot start until we have the sheriff of Middlesex County here to start it off. Is that right?
Yes, and the sheriff of Middlesex County will be announced and will tap his gold-tipped baton. Is supposed to have a very limited script. And I should also say that once these festivities of seating people, the processions, and the bands have ceased, the script for the awarding of degrees, for the conferring of degrees, it's printed in a small booklet. And that script is very fixed. There's not a lot of ad-libbing or impromptu speaking on this day. What the deans of the various graduate schools and what the president says is all scripted. So there's a certain formality and tradition. There she is, Jackie O'Neill, our university marshal. And she will receive from, I think that's the police chief there, but she'll receive the word that everything is in order. It does look as if most people are seated now.
It looks like most people are seated, and we're getting very close to the start of the ceremony.
About, well over 10,000 people here. 6,000 degrees to be awarded on this day. It's printed in the commencement issue of the Harvard Gazette, but over 6,000 in the university as a whole. There's the sea of the undifferentiated band of 2012 initiands who will, within a day's time, be off to the four corners of the United States and across the world. One of the things that Drew Faust emphasized at her baccalaureate speech yesterday was the role of real good luck in our lives. And I think she realizes this as president of a university in which 30,000 students apply and we have 1,600 who are admitted, but also the many bits of good luck that went into each and every one of their lives. And that kind of luckiness comes with a certain responsibility. And she underlined that. It was really very beautiful to see the relationship she had to herself and her thoughts about this that were not the thoughts that we ordinarily hear from college presidents at this time of year.
That's right.
Some of our honorands, Fareed Zakaria in the middle there.
Fareed Zakaria talking to
one whose name shall not be mentioned at the moment.
I guess we should wait until until they actually are announced.
Well, everyone actually knows because they have copies of the Harvard Gazette that have been handed out to everyone at the gates of Harvard.
That particular person was a very famous face. I think we all recognize
Really?
Representative John Lewis.
Extraordinary. Martha Minow, the dean of the
Of the
faculty
law
of
school,
law.
and Jeff Flyer, the dean of the medical school, next to Evelyn Hammond.
Evelyn Hammond. Each of the honorands is also joined with a faculty escort, and that is Fred Abernathy at his best, speaking to those in the front row.
You know, Fred's passion, other than
And
calling
Dorothy
on
Austin, who
commencement,
has been is my co-master, and she's been helping Fred out as a caller during these last few years. So they've done their job to get everyone in here and seated, which is
it looks
no
like
small
everyone
task.
is just about here, and they found their seats, and we're almost ready to begin.
And the faculty seated right below us on the stage of the Tercentenary Theatre once described at the 300th anniversary as ascending the stage like a flock of iridescent birds, because they do have the colors of all the universities of the United States and the world, and some of the feathers and the ermine that go with academic garb as well.
It's really a holdover from the Middle Ages, but it's really quite spectacular. And there we see
Again,
Dean
more of
Venke
our
in the back.
honors.
Dean
Dean
Venke,
Venke.
Venkatesh Narayana Murthy, former Dean of Engineering and Applied Sciences, really oversaw the transition from the Division of Engineering and Applied Sciences to becoming a school, to becoming a new school, the newest school at Harvard, the School of Engineering and Applied Sciences.
And it will have, I think, the smallest number of graduates today, but it is a school that has become a school on its own, and an important.
A very important part of Harvard's efforts going forward to in its work to work on all sorts of grand problems for society.
The members of the Harvard Corporation are seated on the level of President Faust, who is in an old Jacobean chair that has been sat in by presidents, apparently very uncomfortable, but by presidents for several centuries now.
Well, she doesn't have to sit for very long in this ceremony.
Right.
She stands for a good part of it.
And then the members of the corporation flank her on both sides. A new member of the Harvard Corporation was announced just yesterday.
And then we have the three presidents, former presidents, Bach, Rudenstein, and Summers, sitting right in front of her.
All of them probably relieved that their roles are not as major today as they have been in the past. And we will hear Madam President over and over again. Madam President and members of the corporation. And then Mr. President would refer to the president of the Board of Overseers. The university choir that is gathered from various alumni and graduating students, but also juniors and sophomores who are singing on the steps of University Hall.
I think we're ready to begin.
The sound of the bell begins it. And
Everybody's
it will end
rushing
with
to
glorious
sit down.
pealings of the bell as well.
Mr. Sheriff, pray, give us order.
As the High Sheriff of Middlesex County, I declare that this meeting will be in order.
There was a time when there was so much disorder that the meeting being in order by the sheriff was a very important thing.
It's really a wonderful role that he plays in this
It
Please rise for the national anthem. The chaplain of the day will open the exercises with a prayer.
Let us pray. O you who are called by many names, yet are higher than any name, we pause to offer you our gratitude for this day. We give you thanks for all that is good in this place, for all the people who work together to make this place a community of excellence in learning, which reaches beyond itself to the wider world. We give you thanks for all those in this place whose idealism and commitment inspires us to go beyond the whys of this world and to ask, why not? Grant us the foreshadowing of a world in which there is no more crying or pain, and in which every tear is wiped from every eye. So much as it is given to us to effect the coming about of that world, give to each of us the courage, the commitment, and the wisdom to set ourselves to bringing it into being. Thrill us with delight, convict us with power, enlighten us with brilliance, inspire us with vision, hold us with love, and send us forth from this place with courage, we pray. And all the people say, Amen.
Latin salutatory, de quadam ariae Harvardianae porta. Candidate for the degree of Bachelor of Arts, Michael Kenneth Velchik.
A young man from Oakton, Virginia.
I say, spouse, decani, professores sapientissimi, familiae, amici, hospites honoratissimi. Tandem mei condiscipuli carissimi, ex instituto ac more maiorum, in hanc priscam consuetudinem nos revoco, et hac lingua antiquissima omnes vos salvere jubeo, salvete! Spectatores quidem adestis, nostri laudandique causa honestandique gratia, id quod gratissimum est nobis, et vobis haec narrabo, ut discatis atque intelligatis, quade causa nos ita collatis. Sed nunc meos condiscipulos anima adverto, aliis gradum suscipere gradatio vitae est. Reliqua via prona. Reliquam vitam terretis semper recordantes saepe quemonentes circumstantes vos cooptatos esse in quaddam collegium Bostoniae situm. Re vera Cantabrigiae. Aliis iam prospiciunt ad superiores laudes, ad maiores laetitias, ac forsan et maximam laetitiam et summam laudem, conspicore filium suum ex universitate Harvardiana olim gradum suscipientem. Meum igitur est, ad monere vos unde veneritis, qualia hic feceritis, quo vadatis, ut tanto honore digni sitis. Hoc apertum uniquique est, crede quidem, qui frequens in aurea Harvardiana versetur, cum litoris quadratis ac perspicuis super portam dexteriensem sic inscriptum sit. Ingredite ut sapientia crescatis, exite ut melius patriae et generi humano serviatis. Hoc mihi liceat, brevi atque adeo una sententia explicare. Quator ab hinc annos ex togatorum numero hominum sapientissimi electi, alii nostrum ex extremis terrae partibus, longinquis nationibus remotis sedibus, alii proximis, primum per portam Johnstoniensem in aream Harvardianam, ut sapientia crescoremus ingressi, novi homines, nam nemo est quid ignoret omne collegium divisum esse in partes quator. Amicitia, cum uno quoque conjuncti, foro Harvardiano explorato, actis rubris certatis, simul intra portas huiusque aureae magistratibus aquibustam petitis, simul foris, Obama, alumno clarissimo, consule creato, tum illo die festivo ac fatali, alii beati admissi in hortum quadratum. Alii beatiores, ad domus flumini Carolo adiacentes. Alii beatissimi, ad domum dunsteriensem. Tum sapientis stultifacti, fastis correctis, bellis cumblatis perociter gestis, ientaculis coctis, abjudicatis, labores fandos, infandos que passi, dende juniores, tandem seniores, hoc anno mirabili. Libris lectis, amantibus amantis, carminibus cantantis, in memoria tenentes per multas lectiones auditas, quastam fortasse inauditas, multas studio actas vigilias, paucas horas et ante meridianas. Theses scriptas, rescriptas, postremo submissas, Ialenses, non modo in illo certamine, verum etiam in illa naumachia, nec semel, nec bis, nec ter quidem, sed quater victos. Attestati lin sanitatem, auream Harvardianam quondam occupatam, tum liberatam, denique nunc hunc theatrum Augustum trecentenarium ingressi, gradulantes unum quemque internos de rebus gestis, simulac rebus gerendis, evasuri alii in alias partes orbis terrarum, alii ut rem quaerant, Tacite, tacite. Tacite, meum est. Alii ut rei publicae serviant. Satis est, satis est.
We see all of the Kennedy School students there with their globes.
Alii ut reis adsint.
Law students with their gavels.
Alii ut aegros medicent.
All those new physicians.
Alii ut aedificia extorlant. Alii Deos. Alii ut dentes instruant. alii ignaros. Metaidet. Alii non ut vias tritas sequantur, sed ut vias nondum unitas patefaceant. Omnes ad amplissimos honorum gradus assecuturi. Nunc mei condiscipuli hac oratione paene perfecta per portas huiusque aureae sic periti, ut melius patriae et generi humano serveamus exeamus.
Senior English Address, Harvard's Enduring Contradictions. Candidate for the degree of Bachelor of Arts, Anthony Charles Hernandez.
When I was a sophomore, I decided to take the course Religion 1513, a history of Harvard and its presidents, taught by the late Reverend Peter Gomes, a legendary character and presence at Harvard. Usually a course taken by seniors because of its nostalgic value and moderate workload. I thoroughly enjoyed it, and the course took on greater significance after Reverend Gomes passed away in February 2011. It would be the last time that he taught the course. The last semester, he'd invite students over for tea, or challenge us to hunt Boston for the grave of John Harvard, or deliver a lecture from the president's chair in University Hall. I had looked forward to him speaking today at my own commencement. And although this is the second commencement where his booming voice and Paddington Bear-like persona will be missed, I felt it a great opportunity to reflect on the history of our university. For if there is one lesson we can learn from Reverend Gomes, it's that Harvard is a place of contradictions. Take, for example, the history of women at Harvard. Although we were a college founded exclusively for men, it was the religious agitations of Anne Hutchinson that motivated the leaders of the Massachusetts Bay Colony to establish an institution able to suppress such dissent. The first scholarships for the college were established by a woman, Lady Anne Radcliffe Molson. And the largest building in our presence, Widener Library, was commissioned and overseen by a mother at a time when her own daughter wouldn't have been allowed to set foot inside. Or take the question of public versus private. Reverend Gomes was always quick to point out that we were founded through an act of a public legislature, seeking to build upon the collective will of the community to perpetuate its values. Another paradox, balancing the sacred and the secular. We were founded in a deep Puritan tradition at a time when the concept of separation of church and state did not exist. Up until the Civil War, 17 of our 20 presidents were clergymen. And yet by the 1880s, when President Eliot decided to make morning prayer optional instead of mandatory, critics called us godless Harvard. Godless we may be, religion still pervades our university, evidenced even by much of the ceremony at today's commencement. We were a college that was more influenced by the Great Awakening than the American Revolution. After General George Washington's troops ransacked Massachusetts Hall, Harvard College, demonstrating great shrewdness, prepared 2 lawsuits. One, in case the British won. One in case the British won, the other in case the Americans won. And for me, one of the beauties of Harvard is the persistence of such contradictions. We are a place that a first-generation college student and a fourth-generation legacy can each call home. A school where someone who enters as a pre-med can leave an art history concentrator. A place that is forward-looking, yet slow-moving. A school that predates America, yet is intensely American and international at the same time. And like the history of our university, Reverend Gomes himself was a man of contradictions. He was a waspy, African-American, baptized Catholic turned Baptist preacher, a friend of Ronald Reagan, and a role model for the gay community. And he fit in at Harvard as well as anyone. In a 2008 interview about his background, he said, "It is what it is. I am what I am. It confuses people, which gives me great pleasure." And perhaps that's the true value of our university as we all move forward into an uncertain future. Each of us, myself included, can find contradictions in our own backgrounds, interests, and aspirations, sometimes making us feel isolated from what we suppose a Harvard student ought to be. For many of us, such contradictions might be worthy of hiding. Yet Reverend Gomes was a man who saw strength in them. We must embrace our contradictions and not be afraid to talk about them. In a changing world that is smaller, flatter, and globalized, they will be assets, not limitations. And as long as we remind ourselves of the contradictions in our own history, in our own privilege, and in our own narratives, such contradictions will not only be sources of strength, but because of them, we'll always be at home at Harvard.
Graduate English Address, Pivoting Perspectives. Candidate for the degree of Doctor of Philosophy, Jonathan Service.
Yuku haru ya tori naki, uo no me wa namida. That's a poem by Basho, one of Japan's great haiku masters. When he composed it, he was already acknowledged to be a dexterous manipulator of the Japanese tongue and a profound observer of the human condition. He lived in a little hut on the outskirts of Edo, a great metropolis of 1 million people that grew to become present-day Tokyo. Disciples gathered from miles around to live at his side and to see life through his eyes. But fame weighed heavily on his shoulders. He longed to escape. For Basho knew that life is a journey. Though the way was long and dangerous, he desired nothing more than to leave behind the cosmopolitan comforts of the city in order to discover the wilds of the north. When he set out on his journey, well-wishers gathered at the outskirts of Edo. It was there that he composed this haiku. Yuku haruya, it is the spring of leaving. Torinaki, the birds are crying. Uo no me wa namida, and in the eyes of the fish, there are tears. What an extraordinary vision, all of nature hushed and saddened, partaking in the scene of an old poet, too old for the road ahead, leaving his friends behind. Gathered in Tercentenary Theatre with trees for columns and branches supporting the sky, I wonder if there aren't birds crying here as well. Perhaps the bell of Memorial Church is gazing down upon us, wondering which one of you to anoint with the task of bringing peace to this world, which to raise up to a presidency or prime ministership, which to make a lawgiver to the nations, which a champion of the oppressed. Perhaps that bronze statue of John Harvard is sitting on his plinth thinking, I do not doubt that one among them will make dark matter speak, another will cure disease, an entrepreneur will change the way we live, a scientist will translate the wildest dreams of fiction into reality. Perhaps there's a book in Widener's stacks whose pages you are the first to turn, whose words you are the first to read, that consoles itself when it considers your departure, with the thought that you will feel things no one has ever felt, think things never thought, and write things often thought in new and brilliant ways. And perhaps all of them, bell, bronze, and book, are thinking, well, if that's their calling, then let them go. Yet, there's another meaning encoded in Basho's haiku, hidden in a homonym. Yuku haruya, spring is passing. Torinaki, the birds are crying. Or because naku also means to squawk or chirp, they're simply doing what birds do when they open their beaks. Uo no me wa namida, and the eyes of the fish are wet. But of course they are. They live in water. Read this way, the fish and birds are shamelessly ignorant of what is happening above and below. They simply do not care. Now, why am I introducing such an infelicitous idea on this most auspicious of occasions? Because Basho knew that the pathetic fallacy, the ascription of human emotions to the world around us, while it raises us up to abstract heights, tends to obscure the intimate, the concrete, the here and now of the people around us. And so with this second reading in mind, allow me to offer the following. Make time today to look each member of your family in the eyes and tell them how much you've appreciated their love and support. Shake hands with your adversaries and sparring partners, for they have tempered you, shaped you, and made you strong. Thank your teachers and mentors for opening fresh vistas before you and showing you how to wend through them. Hold your friends close and wish them safe travels, for everything will change as of today. When you've done that, pivot back to the exultant vision enabled by our first reading of Basho's haiku. Allow yourself to perceive all of nature conspiring to celebrate your achievement. Every leaf whispering of the changes you'll make, every bee buzzing the news, every lily trumpeting your great expectations, every ant lining up in salute. every brick baking red in the smoking hot sun of your success, the very walls of this university pulling themselves up to their full height as they think of what you will do in the world out there. Yukuharu ya torinaki, uo no me wa namida. It is the spring of our leaving. The birds are crying, and the eyes of the fish are wet, with tears of pride, tears of sadness, tears of joy.
Today we conclude our year-long celebration. Thank you. Today we conclude our year-long celebration of Harvard's 375th anniversary. I am very pleased to welcome and recognize my distinguished predecessors, Derek Bach, Neil Rubenstein, and Lawrence Summers. From the time of Derek Bach's taking office in 1971, 41 years ago, we together represent more than 10% of Harvard's history. I am now honored to introduce our friend and colleague, Seamus Heaney. Heaney served as Harvard's Boylston Professor of Rhetoric and Oratory from 1985 to 1997. And he was the Ralph Waldo Emerson Poet in Residence until 2006. In 1995, he was awarded the Nobel Prize in Literature. We are delighted to welcome him back to Harvard and to have him recite the villanelle that he wrote for Harvard's 350th anniversary. We will then hear the first performance of a musical setting of the villanelle composed for Harvard's 375th anniversary by Richard Bowden and performed by the Commencement Choir. Please join me in welcoming Seamus Heaney.
Villanelle for an anniversary. A spirit moved. John Harvard walked the yard. The atom lay unsplit, the west unwon. The book stood open and the gates unbarred. The maps dreamt on like moon dust. Nothing stirred. The future was a verb in hibernation. A spirit moved. John Harvard walked the yard. Before the classic style, before the clapboard, all through the small hours of an origin, the book stood open and the gates unbarred. Night passage of a migratory bird. Wingbeat, gown flap, like a homing pigeon, a spirit moved. John Harvard walked the yard. Was that his soul, look, sped to its reward by grace or works? A shooting star, an omen. The book stood open and the gates unbarred. Begin again where frosts and tests were hard. Find yourself or founder. Here, imagine, a spirit moves. John Harvard walks the yard. the books stand open, and the gates unbarred.
The deans of the several departments will now present to the president and fellows and to the Board of Overseers, in the favoring presence of the friends here assembled, the candidates on whom the various academic distinctions are, with due ceremony, to be conferred. The Dean of the Faculty of Arts and Sciences.
Madam President, Fellows of Harvard College. Madam President, members of the Board of Overseers. In the name of the Faculty of Arts and Sciences and by its authority, I have the honor to report on 4 groups of candidates who will be presented to you today. First, the Dean of the Graduate School of Arts and Sciences will present candidates for the degree of Doctor of Philosophy. And then the degrees of Master of Arts and of Science. Next, the Dean of the School of Engineering and Applied Sciences will present candidates for the degrees of Master of Science and of Engineering. Third, the Dean of Continuing Education and Extension Studies, University Extension, will present candidates for the degrees of Associate in Arts, Bachelor of Liberal Arts, and Master of Liberal Arts in Extension Studies. Finally, near the close of these exercises, the seniors in Harvard College who are candidates for the first degree in arts or in science will stand proudly before you. The candidates in each of these groups have, by vote of the faculty, fulfilled the requirements for the degrees for which they are severally recommended. I salute all of these women and men, trusting that they will forever wisely enjoy the freedoms that their education has given to them, while bearing the responsibilities that their learning demands of them. Each of these groups will now be introduced to you by the deans responsible for the programs in which they have been enrolled.
Candidates for the degree of Doctor of Philosophy will rise. The Dean of the Graduate School of Arts and Sciences.
Madam President, Fellows of Harvard College, Madam President, members of the Board of Overseers. As Dean of the Graduate School of Arts and Sciences, I have the honor to present to you these scholars, all of whom have committed themselves to a rigorous pursuit of advanced study, have attained high distinction, and have made original contributions to knowledge in their several fields of scholarship.
By virtue of authority delegated to me and recognizing your high academic achievements, I confer on you, women and men of learning, the degree of Doctor of Philosophy, and I welcome you to the ancient and universal company of scholars and entrust to you the free inquiry of future generations. Congratulations.
Candidates from the Graduate School in Arts and Sciences for the degrees of Master of Arts and Master of Science will rise. The Dean of the Graduate School of Arts and Sciences.
Madam President, Fellows of Harvard College, Madam President, members of the Board of Overseers. As Dean of the Graduate School of Arts and Sciences, I have the honor to present to you these candidates, all of whom have completed a commendable step of advanced study in their respective disciplines.
By virtue of authority delegated to me, I confer on you the degree of Master of Arts or Master of Science, and certify that you have surmounted with distinction the first stage of graduate study. Congratulations.
Candidates from the School of Engineering and Applied Sciences for the degrees of Master of Science and Master of Engineering will rise. The Dean of the School of Engineering and Applied Sciences.
Madam President, Fellows of Harvard College, Madam President, and members of the Overseers. As Dean of the School of Engineering and Applied Sciences, I have the honor to present to you these women and men who have completed the first step of advanced study in engineering and applied sciences.
By virtue of authority delegated to me, I confer on you the degree of Master of Science or Master of Engineering, and certify that you have surmounted with distinction the first stage of graduate study. Congratulations.
Candidates for the degrees of Associate in Arts, Bachelor of Liberal Arts, and Master of Liberal Arts in Extension Studies will rise. The Dean of Continuing Education and University Extension.
Madam President, Fellows of Harvard College, Madam President, and members of the Board of Overseers. As Dean of Continuing Education and University Extension, I have the honor to present to you these students, candidates for the degrees of Associate in Arts, Bachelor of Liberal Arts, and Master of Liberal Arts in Extension Studies.
By virtue of authority delegated to me, I confer on you the degree of Associate in Arts, Bachelor of Liberal Arts, or Master of Liberal Arts in Extension Studies, and admit you to the Fellowship of Educated Men and Women. Congratulations.
the Dean of the Faculty of Medicine.
Madam President, Fellows of Harvard College, Madam President, members of the Board of Overseers, in the name of the Faculty of Medicine and by its authority, I have the honor to report today that 2 groups of candidates in the fields of medicine and dental medicine have fulfilled the requirements of the faculty for the degrees for which they are recommended. They will be introduced to you by the deans responsible for the programs in which they are enrolled.
Candidates for the degrees of Doctor of Dental Medicine, Doctor of Medical Sciences, and Master of Medical Sciences will rise. The Dean of the School of Dental Medicine.
Madam President, Fellows of Harvard College, Madam President, members of the Board of Overseers. As Dean of the School of Dental Medicine, I have the honor to present to you these women and men, each of whom has devoted 4 years to the study of dental medicine, or at least 3 years to postdoctoral studies aimed at improving health and the quality of life.
By virtue of authority delegated to me, I confer on you the degree of Doctor of Dental Medicine, Doctor of Medical Sciences, or Master of Medical Sciences, and declare that you are qualified for practice and research in a demanding branch of medicine. Congratulations.
Candidates for the degrees of Doctor of Medicine and Master of Medical Science will rise. The Dean for Medical Education.
Madam President, Fellows of Harvard College, Madam President and members of the Board of Overseers. As Dean for Medical Education, I have the honor to present to you these men and women, each of whom has worked hard and well to prepare for a life of learning and service in medicine.
By virtue of authority delegated to me, I confer on you the degree of Doctor of Medicine or Master of Medical Science, and declare that as physicians you are ready to engage in an honorable and merciful calling. Congratulations.
Candidates for the degree of Master of Theological Studies, Master of Divinity, Master of Theology, and Doctor of Theology will rise. With gratitude for his decade of distinguished leadership, I introduce the Dean of the Faculty of Divinity.
Madam President, Fellows of Harvard College, Madam President, members of the Board of Overseers. As Dean of the Faculty of Divinity, I have the honor to present to you these women and men, each of whom has devoted 2, 3, or more years to theological or religious studies in preparation for careers as leaders in vocations of service and in scholarship.
By virtue of authority delegated to me, I confer on you the degree of Master of Theological Studies, Master of Divinity, Master of Theology, or Doctor of Theology, and declare that you are well prepared to foster the health and vitality of communities of faith, to further scholarship in religious studies and to help in shaping the shared values of the broader society. Congratulations.
Candidates for the degrees of Doctor of Law, Master of Laws, and Doctor of Juridical Science will rise. The Dean of the Faculty of Law.
Madam President, Fellows of Harvard College. Madam President, members of the Board of Overseers. As Dean of the Faculty of Law, I have the honor to present to you these women and men, each of whom has completed a degree in legal studies toward the end of advancing justice and promoting the rule of law.
By virtue of authority delegated to me, I confer on you the degree of Doctor of Law, Master of Laws, or Doctor of Juridical Science, and declare that you are ready to aid in the shaping and application of those wise restraints that make us free. Congratulations.
Candidates for the degrees of Master in Business Administration, Master in Management Research, and Doctor of Business Administration will rise. The Dean of the Faculty of Business Administration.
Fellows of Harvard College, Madam President, members of the Board of Overseers. As Dean of the Faculty of Business Administration, it is my honor to present to you these women and men who have developed their leadership skills and understanding of the art of general management through the study of business administration.
By virtue of authority delegated to me, I confer on you the degree of Master in Business Administration, Master in Management Research, or Doctor of Business Administration, and testify that you are ready to lead people and organizations in enterprises that will serve society. Congratulations.
Candidates for the several degrees in architecture, landscape architecture, urban planning, and design will rise. The Dean of the Faculty of Design.
Madam President, Fellows of Harvard College. Madam President, and members of the Board of Overseers. As the Dean of the Faculty of Design, I have the honor to present to you these men and women, each of whom has qualified for a master's degree in architecture, landscape architecture, urban design, urban planning, or design studies, or for the degree of Doctor of Design.
By virtue of authority delegated to me, I confer on each of you the degree for which you have qualified, and declare your competence to lead in shaping the spaces in which we live. Congratulations.
Candidates for the degrees of Master and Doctor of Education will rise. The Dean of the Faculty of Education.
Madam President, Fellows of Harvard College, Madam President, and members of the Board of Overseers. As Dean of the Faculty of Education, I have the honor to present to you these women and men who will be leaders in education practice, policy, and research.
By virtue of the authority delegated to me, I confer on each of you the master's or doctor's degree in education and declare that you are well prepared to guide and serve the learning needs of contemporary society. Congratulations.
Candidates for the several degrees in public health will rise. The Dean of the Faculty of Public Health.
Madam President, Fellows of Harvard College, Madam President, and members of the Board of Overseers. As Dean of the Faculty of Public Health, I have the honor to present to you these women and men, each of whom has qualified for a master's degree or a doctor's degree to provide leadership, advance knowledge, and improve the public's health.
By virtue of authority delegated to me, I confer on you the degrees in public health for which your studies have qualified you, and declare that you are well prepared to generate and use knowledge to improve health throughout the world. Congratulations.
Candidates for the degrees of Master in Public Administration, Master in Public Administration in International Development, and Master in Public Policy will rise. The Dean of the Faculty of Government.
Madam President and Fellows of Harvard College, Madam President and members of the Board of Overseers. As Dean of the Faculty of Government, it gives me great pride to present to you these women and men, each of whom have qualified to provide leadership in public service.
By virtue of the authority delegated to me, I confer on you the degree for which your studies have qualified you, and testify that you are well prepared to offer leadership in the quest for enlightened public policy and effective public service throughout the world. Congratulations.
Candidates for the degree of Bachelor of Arts or of Science will rise. Their chosen representatives, together with candidates for those degrees, summa cum laude, will draw near. The Dean of Harvard College.
Madam President and Fellows of Harvard College, Madam President and members of the Board of Overseers. As Dean of Harvard College, I have the honor to present to you these women and men, each of whom has fulfilled the faculty's requirements for the first degree in arts or in science. Each candidate stands ready to advance knowledge, to promote understanding, and to serve society.
By virtue of authority delegated to me, I confer on you the first degree in arts or in science and admit you to the fellowship of educated women and men. Congratulations. By virtue of authority delegated to me by the two governing boards, I now confer the following honorary degrees. The provost will introduce the candidates.
High in the stratosphere, a thin layer of ozone gas circles the Earth. It filters out much of the sun's most harmful ultraviolet rays. Without it, life as we know it would not be possible. In the mid-70s, working with the chemist Sherwood Rowland, our first guest theorized that the ozone layer was put at risk by chlorofluorocarbons, CFCs, then a common ingredient in aerosol sprays, coolants, and other products. The discovery was a historic milestone in atmospheric chemistry. It foreshadowed the finding of a hole in the ozone layer over Antarctica. It led to a landmark international treaty, phasing out the production of substances that deplete the ozone layer. And it earned our guest a share of the 1995 Nobel Prize in Chemistry. The first Mexican-born Nobel laureate in science, he has for decades continued to push forward the frontiers of environmental science at UC Irvine, at Caltech's Jet Propulsion Laboratory, at MIT, and most recently at UC San Diego. Beyond his research, he has continued to be deeply engaged with public policy, with special attention to air pollution in major cities worldwide. He carries out this work, in part as head of a major center for energy and environment that bears his name in his hometown of Mexico City. It says much about him that after receiving his Nobel, he donated much of the prize money to create fellowships for scientists from developing countries. We honor Mario Molina.
Guarding a sphere that encircles the earth, committed to the care of the air we breathe, an atmospheric chemist of stratospheric achievement, whose work in the lab is a boon to the world. Mario Molina, Doctor of Science.
Our next guest is a paragon of intercultural understanding, not of cultures rooted in nationality or ethnicity or religion. Rather, what C.P. Snow famously called the two cultures of academic life, the scientific and the humanistic. She is a central figure at the crossroads of literature and science. Her scholarship has drawn out the literary dimensions of scientific masterworks, as well as the influence of scientific thought on great literature. As one scholar wrote of her seminal book, Darwin's Plots, she invented an entire field by casting Darwin as a scientist who is also an artist, a gifted literary stylist whose language allows the reader to participate in a copious world, a voyage into the past as exuberant as Darwin's voyage round the world in the Beagle. Her many books and articles include distinguished works on George Eliot and on Virginia Woolf, on the nature of interdisciplinary studies, and on the interplay of science and culture. Her writings, critics have said, make for urgent, exhilarating reading. They convey the relentless fluidity of language and experience. They lead readers into new territories through what Darwin himself called the open fields of history, humanity, imagination, and science. We honor the King Edward VII Professor of English Literature Emerita and the former president of Clare Hall College at the University of Cambridge, Dame Gillian Beer.
A luminous guide to a copious world, forging a missing link between science and literature. For this honor, her adroit interdisciplinary transgressions make her a natural selection. Jillian Patricia Kempster Beer, Doctor of Letters.
He had perhaps his first serious encounter with opera in his college days, conducting Figaro in the dining room of Leverett House. He kindled what would become a lifelong interest in the interplay of poetry and music as a student in Hum 2, with the section leader named Neil Rudenstein. As student conductor of the Bach Society Orchestra, he got his first taste of cranky reviews, courtesy of that most unlikely of sources, the Harvard Crimson. He is believed to be the first Harvard undergraduate to have had his senior thesis accepted in the form of a musical composition. And in the 4 decades since he said farewell to his Harvard studies, packed up his Volkswagen Beetle, and drove west to California, he has become one of the most important and most imaginative composers of our age. Nixon in China, the death of Klinghoffer, Dr. Atomic, all are among his masterful and often controversial operatic works. Many of his pieces for orchestra, chorus, and other ensembles have become standards of the contemporary classical repertory. His composition in memory of the victims of 9/11 on the transmigration of souls won the Pulitzer Prize. With a singular musical style that blends the minimalist with the romantic, and that draws on influences from Mozart and Cage to McCartney and Coltrane, he is a winner of 5 Grammys and many other honors, including our own Harvard Arts Medal. He has conducted leading orchestras worldwide, and he writes and speaks about music and the arts with bracing eloquence and insight. We are proud to honor John Adams.
Daring, eclectic, full of surprise, an American original, Crimson Bread, whose music stirs, enchants, provokes, and whose life ennobles the embrace of art. John Adams, Doctor of Music.
Our next guest, born in Vienna in 1923, survived the Holocaust. In his late teens, he found himself in an internment camp in Canada. He worked as a lumberjack for 20 cents a day, earning enough to buy textbooks on math and physics. He pursued undergraduate studies at the University of Toronto, then his graduate and postdoctoral work in physics at Harvard. I felt very insecure upon arriving in Cambridge, he later wrote. His goal, he said, was simply survival for at least 1 year. He not only survived, he completed his PhD in 2 years. And launched a career as one of the great physicists of our time. He is perhaps best known for his insights into the electronic structure of matter. His breakthrough, known as density functional theory, earned him a Nobel Prize in 1998, not in physics, but in chemistry. His work has laid essential foundations for quantum chemistry, the application of quantum mechanics to chemical problems. Author of some of the most cited papers in the history of physics, and a role model to countless scientists, he has served on the faculties of the Carnegie Institution of Technology, UC San Diego, and UC Santa Barbara. At Santa Barbara, he was founding director of the Institute of Theoretical Physics, one of the world's renowned centers for interdisciplinary science. Long devoted to humanitarian and environmental causes, and not to mention rollerblading along the shore, he received the National Medal of Science in 1988. 64 years after his first doctorate from Harvard, we proudly present his second. We welcome Walter Cohn.
Elucidating matter's electronic structure, propelling chemistry's quantum leap, a sage physicist, a revered mentor, a Nobel laureate who prizes noble aims, Walter Cohn, Doctor of Science.
What is the nature of race? What is the relationship of politics and morality? How do we balance our concern for family and neighbors with our concern for the wider world? How do moral revolutions happen? To what extent do aspects of our identity define us or constrain us? How do we know good from evil? These are just some of the profound questions that our next guest has probed with extraordinary acuity and originality during his career as one of the Academy's leading philosophers and as a foremost scholar of African and African American literary and cultural studies. Born in London, raised in Ghana, educated at Cambridge, he served on the faculties of Yale, Cornell, and Duke, before a decade at Harvard, and now a decade as the Lawrence S. Rockefeller University professor at Princeton. With his longtime colleague, Henry Louis Gates, Jr., he co-edited Africana, a multimedia encyclopedia of the African experience, inspired by the century-old vision of W.E.B. Du Bois, Harvard's first African-American PhD. Just months ago, he received the National Humanities Medal, conferred for his achievements in seeking eternal truths in the contemporary world. We proudly welcome back to Harvard a scholar whose work combines, as one colleague said, the rarest combination of rigor and humanity. Kwame Anthony Appiah.
Brilliant son of Ghana, deep fount of Africana, a philosopher and humanist of discerning moral clarity, whose work evokes the spirit of Socrates and the dream of Du Bois, Kwame Anthony Appiah, Doctor of Laws.
She wandered in to see me one day and announced she was going to organize a teacher's corps, would do it in a year, and raise several $million, one of her professors recalled. I said, "Listen, kid, this is obviously deranged." But she has a kind of really compelling, gentle stubbornness. That was 1988. The deranged idea became her senior thesis, and her senior thesis soon became Teach for America. It started with her passion to achieve educational equity and excellence for students in low-income communities. And since its founding in 1990, Teach for America has inspired some 33,000 talented college graduates to devote 2 years to teaching in dozens of school districts across the country, from Newark to New Mexico, from Detroit to the Mississippi Delta. It has brought new energy and new possibilities to the search for solutions to one of the nation's most important and intractable challenges, closing the achievement gap in K-12 education. And it has become emblematic of a generation's rising commitment to public service. In 2011 alone, nearly 50,000 young women and men applied to Teach for America, reportedly including nearly a fifth of the Harvard College senior class. With honors including the Presidential Citizens Award and the John F. Kennedy Profile and Courage Award, our guest has accomplished all of this while overcoming an educational disadvantage of her own. She spent her 4 undergraduate years at a small college in the hinterlands of central New Jersey, an institution formerly known for its championship teams in men's basketball. We welcome the pride of Princeton's class of 1989, the CEO of Teach for America and the international network Teach for All, Wendy Kopp.
Moved by the plight of children eager to learn, relentless in quest of educational ascent, she has marshaled a legion of avid instructors, rousing a generation's verve to serve. Wendy Kopp, Doctor of Laws.
As a college student, he led sit-ins at segregated lunch counters in Nashville. He risked his life as a participant in the 1961 Freedom Rides, protesting segregation in bus terminals across the South. He was repeatedly beaten and arrested for challenging Jim Crow laws, but steadfastly maintained his commitment to nonviolence. He chaired the powerfully influential Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee during the height of the Civil Rights Movement. He delivered an impassioned keynote address at the March on Washington in 1963 alongside Dr. Martin Luther King. He organized historic voter registration drives during the Mississippi Freedom Summer in 1964. He led some 600 peaceful protesters during the 1965 march across the Edmund Pettus Bridge in Selma, Alabama. State troopers brutally attacked the marchers, leaving him with a fractured skull. The terrible event became known as Bloody Sunday, and the outraged reaction spurred the Voting Rights Act of 1965. For decades since, he has carried forward his passionate devotion to public service, to equality, and to justice. For the past quarter century, as the esteemed United States Congressman from the 5th District of Georgia. He is a recipient of the Presidential Medal of Freedom and the only person ever recognized with a John F. Kennedy Profile in Courage Award for lifetime achievement. In an age when we bemoan a lack of heroes, we are fortunate today to have one in our midst on this stage. "No one really knows why they are alive," said Dr. King, "until they know what they died for." We salute a man who has always known. We honor the Honorable John Lewis.
His heart full of grace, his eyes on the prize, a heroic figure in a nation's struggle, meeting fear with courage, animus with amity, violence with dignity and peace. John Robert Lewis, Doctor of Laws.
Our final guest was born and raised in Mumbai. His mother was an accomplished newspaper editor, his father a prominent politician. He grew up surrounded by politics, journalism, and talk of international affairs. When the time came for college, he spent 4 years in New Haven, a city perhaps most notable then and now as the reputed birthplace of the Frisbee. Nevertheless, he was accepted to the PhD program in government at Harvard. And so began his extraordinary rise as one of his generation's most thoughtful, penetrating, and widely influential thinkers about world affairs. In From Wealth to Power, he examined the distinctive path that led the United States to global prominence. In The Future of Freedom, he explored the interplay of liberty and democracy and the tensions that sometimes exist between them. In his most recent book, The Post-American World, he contemplates a new global era, one in which America's place on the world stage must be re-examined in light of what he calls the rise of the rest. He became managing editor of the prestigious journal Foreign Affairs at age 28. He has gone on to be a leading editor at Newsweek and now Time. His thought-provoking and elegantly written columns are read by millions around the world. And he reaches a further global audience each week through GPS, his award-winning program on CNN, engaging world leaders and other newsmakers with a seriousness of purpose and a breadth of vision that elevate debate on the paramount issues of our time. We proudly welcome back to Harvard one of the world's most engaged and engaging public intellectuals, Fareed Zakaria.
Exploring the future of freedom, expounding the rise of the rest, an incisive intellectual of percipience and vision who shapes debate in the global public square. Fareed Rafiq Zakaria, Doctor of Laws. In the name of this Society of Scholars, I declare that these persons are entitled to the rights and privileges pertaining to their several degrees, and that their names are to be forever borne on its roll of honorary members.
Degree candidates and their guests and all alumni are warmly invited to attend the afternoon session of Commencement Day exercises under the direction of the Harvard Alumni Association. The Alumni Parade will begin at 1:45 p.m. and the exercises will begin at 2:30 p.m. The commencement speakers will be Fareed Zakaria and the president of Harvard University. The commencement choir director will lead us in the singing of the commencement hymn. Following the hymn, the acting Pusey minister will pronounce the benediction. The commencement exercises then being ended, the sheriff of Middlesex County will declare the meeting adjourned. The audience is requested to remain seated until the president and fellows and their guests have withdrawn from the platform.
Life is short, and we do not have much time to gladden the hearts of those who travel with us. So be swift to love and make haste to act with kindness and compassion. And the blessing of Almighty God, Creator, Redeemer, Sustainer, and Sanctifier, be with us this day and forevermore.
As the High Sheriff of Middlesex County, I declare that the meeting will be adjourned. Jackie, do I lead out now?
And there are the bells ringing at the ends as the
bells are ringing here, but there are also a symphony of bells throughout Cambridge that are ringing at the close of this commencement exercises.
And there we see the Board of Overseers.
All of the bells, including the Lowell House bells, 17 of them are great swan and Russian bells.
There we see Derek Bach and Drew Faust and the Board of Overseers and all of the honorary degree recipients and the provost walking out.
There's Nan Cohane, the former president of Duke, who's one of our members of the corporation.
Her husband, Bob Cohane, of course, was in our government department for many years.
One of the chaplains, Lama Migmar, who looks and is a Tibetan monk. Get a good view of some of the top hats, the overseers and the marshals who are now leaving the stage. Some of the members of the clergy. And now the deans. And the processions will take everyone to some place where they will be fed for lunch. A great spread on the lawn of Loeb House on Quincy Street. And of course in all the houses, the spreads that take place for the parents as the degrees are then not conferred, but the diplomas awarded.
That's right, and so there'll be the individual ceremonies with each individual's name called in each of the houses.
University College Commencement Band and Choir that is a totally voluntary and always a wonderful group of people. So these really have been tremendous exercises this morning with great speeches and some very interesting speeches by our undergraduates as well. 2 undergraduate orators, 1 graduate student in East Asian Studies. And here we see the faculty descending the stairs.
You know, even though it's the faculty that are up on the stage and on the side here, this is really a celebration of our students, and it's really a great opportunity for the faculty to celebrate the students from all over the university for all of their achievements today.
And as you were saying, I think faculty really love coming to this event because this is one of the times in which the sort of rewards of their labors are celebrated, and it is a celebration. I think
that's right. Just filing through the procession, through the crowds of happy students is just one of the greatest times since I've been here at Harvard.
One of our students, one of our orators, cited Dexter Gate, enter to grow in wisdom, depart to serve one's country and one's kind. A great word on which to close this morning. It's been wonderful to be with you.
Thank you,
Dan,
Diana. It's been
for the
wonderful
first
doing
time.
this with
You've
you.
been great at this, and you supplied great atmospherics.
Well,
and where will you go for lunch? Are you going home, or are you going to one of the spreads?
I actually have to rush down to Washington, D.C. The honorary degree recipient Mario Molina and I are actually on President Obama's Science Advisory Council. I have to go down there for a meeting. There we see all the students beginning to file out into the loving arms of their parents and loved ones.
The procession out is very, very slow. And eventually all these people will reach their destinations and by this evening be shed of these garments and on to the next phase of their lives. Thank you so much for this chance to be with you, Dan. We're a great duo. You should do this again.